Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 167. Shizun, I don't want you to be scolded again. The illusion would not disappear because of Nangong's pain. Instead, it continued to cruelly reveal the truths of the bloody past to everyone one after another. Beside the Jinjinj lake, Nangonglu crushed the face of the man-eating pomfret with his foot, looked around and said, "Beast. The beast wanted your wife's spiritual core. The sect leader didn't have to give it to him." Su Xuanglin said, "But for the sake of the holy weapon, the sect leader still sacrificed his wife." "What are you talking about? Don't make it sound so bad." Shizurong's body was already weak. "I've already asked the best doctor in Linling Isle to check on her and they've all said that she didn't have much time left. If she was healthy, how could I be willing to give her to this evil beast?" Su Xuanglin raised his eyebrows slightly and didn't say anything. Nangonglu stared at the man-eating pomfret for a while and suddenly became angry. He complained angrily, "Fate is unfair." It seemed that he didn't expect that a person with both fame and fortune like him would criticize fate. Su Xuanglin was a little surprised and actually laughed as he exclaimed, "What? I said, fate is unfair. Why is it that when others ask for the holy weapon, those auspicious beasts ask for things like breaking flowers and singing songs? When it was my turn, I just had to summon a vicious beast that wants my wife's life. What can I do? How else can I choose?" Nangonglu looked very angry. "When I asked for a holy weapon at the Jinjinj lake, you also saw it? How that Grand Master criticized the attendants for keeping silent about it? That Chu Wanning. That damn 15 or 16-year-old boy dared to offend me like that. He talked so much about benevolence and morality. It's easy for him to talk like that. I don't believe that if it were him, he would choose a wife who is on the verge of death over a holy weapon. Don't you agree?" Su Xuanglin laughed, "That's really hard to say. Don't look at me like that. I'm serious. You can never guess what they are thinking. What else can they think? All they think about is how to make their name famous throughout history. How can I not know them?" The more Nangonglu thought about it, the more aggrieved he felt. He cursed and kicked the pomfret. "Ever since I became the sect leader, I have really suffered a lot of grievances. Despite of how other cursed me, I still have to smile and be amiable all day long. It's fortunate that I was able to swallow my anger and endure the humiliation of begging. Otherwise, at that time when I asked for the holy weapon, I would have died at the hands of Chu Wanning." "You're right." Su Xuanglin was still smiling. "I also think that Chu Wanning really wanted to kill you back then. But I didn't expect that you would actually be able to persuade him. Not only did you escape death from his Tianwen, you've even managed to convince him to keep his mouth shut and not reveal what you've done in Jinjinj Lake to others. I'm really quite impressed at how resilient the sect leader is. He also knows that the Rufeng sect can't fall into chaos. So, no matter how angry he was, what could he do?" Nangonglu said. "Besides, I still have sea heir. Letting him think that his mother was seriously injured and died while killing a demon is more acceptable than the truth." Su Xuanglin sighed. Surprisingly, he nodded impartially. "No wonder he wanted to leave. If I were him, I would also be disgusted with you. Do you think I wanted to do that? Do I have a choice? I already said." Nangonglu said, "Fate is unfair." Seeing this, someone quietly looked in Chu Wanning's direction and muttered, "So Grandmaster Chu actually knew about the truth about Madame Rong's death." He knew, but he still helped Nangonglu conceal it. He actually didn't reveal the truth to the world. He's probably afraid of the trouble it could cause. At that time, he was only 15 years old. If he had made an enemy out of the Rufeng sect then, he probably wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Someone softly spoke up for Chu Wanning. "I don't think so. I think he was just considering the greater consequences of that action." Didn't Nangonglu say that Grandmaster Chu didn't tell the truth because he was afraid of how hurt would young Master Nangongsi would be if he found out? But he didn't consider the severity of the matter. Is a child more important, or is the integrity of a sect leader more important? Alas, if he told the truth earlier, then Rufeng sect wouldn't be in this situation now. You can't say that. If he really told the truth back then, I'm afraid the upper cultivation world would be in chaos. In short, everyone has their own choices. If you were in his shoes then, you might not necessarily be willing to stand up for the truth. Oh, that's not necessarily true. If I were in his shoes, I would definitely immediately expose Nangongliu's true colors. In this kind of matter, if you just stand by and watch, then you can be considered as an accomplice. Although their voices were low, Mo Ran's hearing was exceptional. When a few of the conversation drifted to his ears, he immediately became angry. Just as he was about to speak, someone pulled at his sleeve. Shizun. Chu Wanning's expression was indifferent as he shook his head. There's no need to say anything. But it's not like that at all. Didn't they understand? In that kind of situation, how could you make the matter public? Who can't tell the severity of the situation? It's obviously. Chu Wanning said flatly, "Are you angry?" Mo Ran nodded. Chu Wanning said, "Do you want to do something about it?" Mo Ran nodded again. Chu Wanning said, "All right, then help me cover my ears. I have no intention of arguing with them, but I don't want to listen to them either. So, help me cover my ears. When they stop talking, you can let go." Mo Ran really walked behind Chu Wanning, raised his hands and covered his ears. He lowered his eyes to look at the person in front of him. He felt both angry and distressed. He really couldn't understand why there were still people dissatisfied when Chu Wanning did everything as much as he could. In both of his lifetimes, Chu Wanning has proved to be a person who seemed to have only lived for the sake of others. He had never been selfish for even a single day. Why was it that as long as something was controversial, as long as something was not so black and white, he would always end up being criticized? It seemed that things were always like this. People would often sing praises in gratitude for the good deeds of the wicked ones, but would never let go of even a small misdeed of the truly good ones. In his previous life, the Emperor Taxian Jun had killed countless people. One day, for some reasons, he bestowed each of the masters of Wuobei Temple 10,000 taels of gold. As a result, people praised him and said that the Taxian Jun had become a Buddha. During that time, people talked about Emperor Taxian Jun as if he was practically shining from head to toe just because of this small act of kindness. But what about Chu Wanning? Chu Wanning was an indisputable grandmaster. He was the most benevolent cultivator in the world. But as soon as it was perceived that he had done something wrong, people would maliciously speculate about him. This has happened time and time again. Whenever Chu Wanning did something decisively, people would scold him for being cold-blooded. Whenever Chu Wanning did something considerate, people would accuse him of cowardice. Mo Ran even heard people talking about the incident with the Chen family in Kaidi town during his 5 years of traveling. He actually heard some people say that Chu Wanning was just wanting the public's attention when he beat Chen Yuanwei and hurt ordinary people. He's just a heartless blockhead. That is probably why he didn't have even a few friends, just like any normal person do. Look at this Chu Wanning, he betrayed his Shizun at the age of 15 and has been alone ever since. In this big world, who would be willing to be his friend? Yes, that Chen Yuanwei in Kaidi town, no matter how wrong he was still a client. Chu Wanning was so heavy-handed, he didn't care about the reputation of his sect and disobey the rules followed by cultivation sects. I think he has been alone for a long time that his heart became a little twisted. Twisted heart? Who exactly was the twisted one here? Didn't this person give enough? Do they really want to squeeze his blood dry, chew his flesh and even sacrifice his bones? Was this the right thing to do? Is this what he was supposed to do to be worthy of the name Grand Master Chu? Mo Ran covered his ears. Chu Wanning's figure was tall and slender, but when he stood in front of Mo Ran today, the top of his head only reached up to his chin. Chu Wanning wasn't a weak person, but when Mo Ran looked at him with lowered eyelashes, he suddenly felt that this person was very pitiful. He couldn't help but feel infinite love and tenderness towards him. He wanted to hug this person more than ever before. It wasn't out of lust. He simply wanted to hug him. He wanted to use his flesh and blood to give him warmth in this harsh world. That was all. Towards these talks and doubts that come from the mouth of those who mindlessly say, "If it were me, I would do this and do that," Chu Wanning was long used to them compared to Mo Ran, so he could appear very calm about it. At this point, the memories in Jinjinj Lake had also ended. The memory fragments collapsed and reformed. Chu Wanning moved his gaze away and it fell on Nangongsi. Nangongsi had his back to him. He kept kneeling and didn't stand up again. Chu Wanning sighed softly. Although he and Nangongsi weren't master and disciple in name, they were master and disciple in reality. If possible, he really hoped that Nangongsi could continue to think that Rong Yan had tragically died while killing a monster for the rest of his life. But things didn't go as he wished. After so many years, the paper was penetrated by flames and burned into ashes. In Chu Wanning's gaze, the kneeling Nangongsi and the child kneeling in the morning hall in his memories suddenly overlapped. That child was clumsily carrying a scroll of carefree wanderings, but his recitation was very jerky. He couldn't connect the words together. While wiping his tears, he slowly recited to his mother. "There is a fish in the North Sea, its name is Kun. The Kun is so big, I don't know how many thousands of li it is, it turns into a bird, its name is Peng." He stumbled. Every time he stopped, his young and tender face would show pain that shouldn't be experienced by someone at his age. The entire world. He would not advise it, but the entire world. The difference was. And if he didn't add it? Jew, it must be. It must be differentiated from the outside and the inside, and it can be argued that. The child's soft voice came to an abrupt stop. He didn't turn around, but his small body trembled slightly like a willow tree in the wind. In the end, he covered his face. Unable to hold it in any longer, he burst into tears. "Mother! I was wrong. Sierre was wrong, please wake up, mother. I won't be playful anymore. Please wake up and teach me again, all right." Later on, carefree wanderings became a constant in Nangongsi's life. Every morning lesson, he would copy passages of the scriptures from memory. It has silently accompanied him from the morning young child to a high-spirited and scholarly young master. Madame Rong left and she couldn't teach him anymore. Not long after, Chu Wanning also left, never turning back. Nangongsi didn't have a teacher anymore. He relied on this patched-up quiver of arrows and that sentence: "Greed, resentment, deceit, murder, rape, and plunder are the 7 things a cultivator should not do." In the end, he grew up in this world's #1 sect and became a righteous hero that was completely different from his father. At this time, nearly 15 years had passed since Madame Rong's death. The illusion gathered once again. This time, what appeared in front of everyone was Nangong Liu's sleeping chamber. It was a night of the full moon. Nangong Liu was curled up on the bed. The bed was covered with a mat. It was obviously summer. However, Nangong Liu was wrapped in several layers of thick mattresses. He was trembling incessantly and his lips were purple. Chu Wanning patted Mo Ran's hand. "Let go. I want to continue watching." Mo Ran said, "You don't have to watch. I will relay it to you." He still didn't want to let go of his hand that was covering Chu Wanning's ear. However, after being patted twice by Chu Wanning, he knew that he couldn't change his mind. He had no choice but to uncover his ears. At the same time, he gloomily swept his eyes around. He thought that if anyone said anything bad about Chu Wanning, he would secretly remember it in his mind and later on, he would deal with these people himself. In the illusion, Su Xuanglin walked in from the door and saluted in a crooked manner. He didn't follow the rules of etiquette at all. However, Nangonglu seemed to be used to it. He didn't care. His eyes were bloodshot. He trembled as he asked, "Xuanglin, where's the medicine? Where's the medicine? There's none. I failed." Nangonglu cried out. He was so scared that his snot and tears flowed out. How could, you clearly said it could. I can't take it anymore. It's like all the bones in my body have grown thorns and are pricking me. You, hurry up and help me close the windows tightly. Don't let a single speck of light in. Don't let any. It's already closed tightly. Today is the full moon. Even if you don't go out, you will still feel pain. Su Xuanglin said, "It's useless. You can't escape." No. Where's the medicine? Nangonglu looked a little crazy. Where's the medicine? Where's the medicine? You said it could be mixed. I believe you. Where's the medicine? I reread the scroll and found that this medicine couldn't be mixed. The curse on your body is too vicious. You need something to break it? What? I will give you whatever you want. Just give me the medicine. Get me that medicine. Su Xuanglin said, I would need the spiritual core of the person who cast the curse. Nangong Liu's face instantly turned pale. Spiritual core, you need his spiritual core. Do you have it? How could I have it? Nangonglu roared. His hair was messy and spit was dripping from the corner of his mouth. You also know who cursed me. My good mentor, that trash, good-for-nothing, gentleman. Luo Fenghua. He usurped my position. When I drove him off the sect leader's seat, I had already cut him into pieces. I even buried his ashes in the extremely dangerous blood pond and sent his soul into infinite hell so he will never be reincarnated. Now, even his bones have rotted away. And you want me to get his spiritual core? How can I find it? How can I do that? Su Xuanglin was silent for a while. When Nangonglu finished roaring and gradually fell into despair, he slowly said, I still have a method, but it's extremely difficult to do. Do you want to hear it? Tell me quickly. Even though Luo Fenghua is dead, you should know that it is written in the record of the dead that ghosts who fall into the infinite hell of unmatched may never be able to reincarnate, but it is possible to gather their 3 souls and 7 spirits, giving birth to the same skin, bones and flesh as when they were alive, forming a ghost fetus. The more tragic the death of the ghost fetus, the stronger it will be. Some will even grow a giant skeleton outside of the ghost fetus to protect the soul from dissipating. So what? I can't just go to the infinite hell and dig up his corpse. You can't go there, but he can come to us. Su Xuanglin smiled slightly. His expression was very serene under the candlelight, as if he was just talking about which of his friends he would be going to for tea tonight. The ghost realm and the mortal realm are separated by a barrier. As long as you gather enough of the 5 pure spiritual energies, you can tear open a gap in that barrier. Tear, open a gap to hell. Su Xuanglin smiled and said, yes, tear open a gap and lure Luo Fenghua's ghost fetus out. The ghost fetus will have the same physical body as when he was alive, and it would also have his spirit core. You can eat his flesh and take out his spirit core. Doing so, the curse you have right now would be broken. He paused and said, it's just that it's quite difficult to gather the 5 great spiritual energies. It's best if we could get a superior essence spirit body. Don't be impatient. I will think of a way. Nangonglu opened his mouth to say something, but what came out was a terrible wail. His tears and snot flowed as he laid on the bed trembling violently. Is it really that painful? Su Xuanglin sighed. Your mentor must have really hated you for killing him. He actually put such a cruel curse on the ring. You look really pitiful. Woo. Alright, just bear with it for now. It will stop hurting when the sun comes up. As Su Xuanglin spoke, he sat down on the edge of the bed and crossed his legs. He supported his cheek with one hand and scratched his foot with the other. I'll accompany you. I'll talk to you and distract you so you won't be in so much pain. Nangong Liu's whole body was buried in the depths of the quilt and he couldn't stop panting. Su Xuanglin said, so what do you want to talk about? Why don't we talk about sea air? He's also a child who didn't have it easy. He was born with an unstable spirit core and it's easy for him to chi deviate. This seems to be a chronic illness of the Nangong family. I heard that his great-grandfather also had this illness. Nangong Lu shrank under the quilt and swallowed his saliva. N. Are you planning to do something about it? What do you mean? Nangong Liu's voice was trembling. His illness is better than mine. It's much easier to deal with. In the future, when he get himself a wife, they'll all be able to suppress the spirit flow through dual cultivation. You'd better worry more about my curse. Haven't I always been worried about your curse? But the more you think about it, the more pain you'll feel. Su Xuanglin thus changed the topic. He scratched his toe and said with a smile, but wouldn't this kind of dual cultivation be too much to the body of his cultivation partner? I heard that Sea Air's great-grandmother passed away at a young age due to this. So. Oh, I was just casually asking. I didn't expect that she really died early because of dual cultivation. Su Xuanglin sighed. The Rufeng sect really did have a lot of secrets. The sect leaders actually use their madam's life to help through this tribulation. A woman's life is useless. Su Xuanglin laughed. You look down on women so much. It's not like you don't understand the teachings of the Grand Sect Master. I don't understand. What did the Grand Sect Master teachings say? The Rufeng sect should only be led by a gentleman. That's right. What gentleman? It should be a man. Do you understand? That's rude. This kind of interpretation, the great sect master is probably rolling in his grave in anger. Nangong Lu said with a trembling voice, you haven't got yourself a wife so you don't understand. Women are useless. They are only good for carrying on the family line as their responsibility. Grandmother was willing to sacrifice herself for grandfather. Willing. Su Xuanglin laughed. Then shouldn't you also find someone for Sea Air who is willing to dual cultivate with him and give up her life on his behalf? I've already found someone. Su Xuanglin was stunned. What? Who? Who is it? Is it someone I know? He seemed to be very gossipy. He crawled deeper into the bed and almost wanted to pull Nangong Lu out of the quilt. Sure, you actually have a candidate in mind as a wife for the young master of the Rufeng sect. Then tell me about it quickly. Nangong Lu wrapped himself in the quilt and moved deeper into the bed. After enduring the pain for a while, he said in a hoarse voice, your adopted daughter, Ye Wangzi. End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 168. Shizun, someone is maligning the corpse. In the illusion, Su Xuanglin's eyes suddenly widened. At the same time, most of the people outside of the illusion were also visibly stunned. When Mo Ran saw this, he vaguely felt that something was wrong. He was a person who had lived for 2 lifetimes. This conversation, combined with some event in his past life, allowed him to figure out some thought-provoking details. He realized that the last request of Ye Wangzi to be buried next to Nangong Si in the Rufeng sect's heroes' tombs couldn't simply be because of the friendship between them. Also in the previous life, Ye Wangzi's identity as a female has become common knowledge very early on. As it turned out, Nangong Lu had personally choose her to be the bride of Nangong Si. It seemed that this section of the dream reflection formation was about how the father was looking for a dual cultivation partner for his son. However, not long after the marriage agreement between the two was set, Nangongsi suddenly died and Ye Wangzi was able to survive. Mo Ran couldn't help but think, was Nangongsi's death really just a coincidence? He didn't think so. In the illusion, Su Xuanglин's fingers were clenched into fists. Although his face was still smiling, his tone was a little cold. You want little Xiaoyizi to marry Asi? Well, she's the most suitable. How is she the most suitable? Su Xuanglin laughed. You originally wanted to groom her to be the commander of the shadow guard, so you made her look neither male nor female. Now you're saying you want her to be Sea Air's wife. Aren't you afraid that Sea Air will dislike her? He was really unhappy. I saw that he often talked and laughed with Ye Wangzi and treated her well. I thought that he would be able to accept it more or less. But when I told him about this marriage, he was furious. He said that he didn't like Ye Wangzi at all. The reason why he took care of her was because she was a girl and it wasn't easy for her to survive in Dark City. He refused to accept this marriage arrangement. Su Xuanglin. How could I compromise? He had a huge argument with me, saying that I didn't respect his decision, that I only casually handled the most important matters in his life. He even started avoiding Ye Wangzi. He's now distant and cold with her. The more I talked to him about this marriage arrangement, the worse his attitude became. In the end, he even thought that I was being biased towards Ye Wangzi. He really doesn't know what's good for him. Nangonglu scolded, isn't it because he thinks she's not pretty enough? Su Xuanglin was quite fair when he answered. If the previous sect leader suddenly asked you to marry a woman you didn't like, would you be willing? I don't think it's a matter of good looks or not. You really don't respect him. He is shallow. One has to marry a useful and virtuous wife. If he likes pretty girls, won't he be able to take concubines after his health stabilizes? Nangonglu sighed, Ai, this is also my fault. Back then, cough cough, I didn't see Ye Wangzi's feelings for Sea Air in time. If she was still the same as before, Sier would definitely like her. You're too ridiculous. Su Xuanglin said, Sea Air won't accept it? Unless he doesn't care for his life anymore he has to. Dual cultivation with a person with an unstable spiritual core like him is extremely painful. If he marries an ordinary woman, I'm afraid she won't be able to bear it. Nangonglu gasped for breath. Ye Wangzi loves him. If she's willing, she'll be able to bear it. How could she possibly be willing? I've already asked her. What? I've already asked her. I've already told her about this matter. Nangonglu said, her fear of something bad happening to Sea Air is greater than her fear of dying. Su Xuanglin didn't say anything. He lowered his head and seemed to be thinking about something. After a while, he said, she's really a fool. Seeing this, Mo Ran was almost certain in his previous life, Nangongsi didn't suddenly die because of a disease. In all likelihood, it was Su Xuanglin who killed him personally. With Nangongsi dead, Ye Wangzi could live on. The reason why Nangongsi was still alive in this life was probably because of the involvement of Song Kaiyutong. Song Kaiyutong was a butterfly-boned beady feast who is extremely suitable for dual cultivation. With her marrying Nangongsi, as a father Nangonglu naturally wouldn't oppose this. He even probably felt as if a pie had fallen from the sky, as he wouldn't have to force Nangongsi to marry Ye Wangzi anymore. Since the marriage agreement between Ye Wangzi and Nangongsi was dissolved, Xue Xuanglin didn't have any reason to harm Nangongsi's life anymore. However, there was still one thing that Mo Ran couldn't figure out. Su Xuanglin looked like a deranged devil now. Why would such a devil value Ye Wangzi so much? She was clearly just an adopted daughter. What was this treacherous, terrifying and unpredictable person thinking? What exactly did he want? This memory was not long and thus ended very quickly. When the illusion lit up again, it was an earlier memory compared to before. Nangonglu obviously looked younger than he was now, he didn't even put on weight yet. He was holding a small object in his hand that was flickering with green light. Everybody looked carefully and found that it was the sect leader's ring of the Rufeng sect. Once this ring was put on, it couldn't be taken off until the sect leader position is ready to be passed on. At this time, Nangonglu still hadn't put the ring on, which signify that he wasn't the sect leader of the Rufeng sect yet. An attendant came in and knelt down to salute. The attendant's cultivator robe was stained with blood. It was apparent that he had just fought a fierce battle. This memory should have happened on the night when Nangonglu killed his Shifu and regained the sect leader's thumb ring. Sect leader, what should we do with Luo Fenghua's body? Nangonglu turned the ring in his hand, thinking, bury him in the hero's tomb. For better or for worse, he was still my Shifu. I'll leave him a decent place to return to. Yes, sir. The attendant withdrew. Moran slightly frowned and found this a little strange. According to the memory they saw earlier, the Nangong brothers' mentor, Luo Fenghua, was clearly chopped into 10,000 pieces by Nangonglu, sank into the dangerous blood pond, turned into a malicious spirit and fell into the infinite hell, never to be reincarnated. So, why did this memory say that Nangonglu buried his Shifu in the hero's tomb? In the illusion, Nangonglu gently stroked the sparkling green sect leader's ring. His eyes flashed with a complicated and strange luster, as if he was a little scared, but also very covetous. The jut on his throat bobbed up and down. Finally, he slowly raised his hand. Under the candlelight, he solemnly put the ring on his thumb. He stared at his hand, looking back and forth. The corners of his mouth slowly curved up, as if he was about to burst into a brilliant and happy smile. But before even the ripples of his smile spread out halfway, he suddenly stopped. Nangonglu shouted and suddenly fell down from the sect leader's seat. His whole body was convulsing and trembling. Ah! Ah! Sect leader! Sect leader, what happened to you? His attendants on his left and right rushed to support him. Unexpectedly, when Nangonglu raised his head, his face was full of blood. His face, which was fine just now, suddenly had countless small wounds. Those wounds immediately closed up as if healed and then immediately tore open again. Blood kept surging out of those strange cuts. What's going on? Nangonglu was at a loss. It hurts, so painful, how could this happen? What's going on? The sound of footsteps came from outside the door. A man with a pair of smooth bare feet stepped on the cold bricks against the moonlight. He came in front of Nangonglu, lifted his robe and half knelt down. This man was Su Xuanglin, who was younger than he was now. He bent down and pinched Nangonglu's face to examine it carefully. Nangonglu was gasping for breath and struggling. Tears, snot, and blood mixed together. Su Xuanglin seemed to be a little disgusted. He frowned and then asked, "How did it suddenly turn out like this?" "I don't know. Mister. I don't know. Mr. Xuanglin. Mr. Xuanglin, please save me." At this time, Su Xuanglin was just a counselor who assisted Nangonglu, so Nangonglu called him Mr. Xuanglin instead of elder. After some investigation, Su Xuanglin grabbed Nangonglu's right hand and looked at the shining ring. Suddenly, his expression changed. "There are 10,000 tribulation curse attached to this ring." After hearing those words, the people gathered around all gasped. Only Nangonglu, who was muddle-headed. He didn't know what the curse of life and death was. He only raised his head blankly with tears streaming down his eyes and snot dripped out of his nose, falling on the tiled floor together with blood. "Ah, what is that? It's a death curse." Su Xuanglin's expression was extremely bad. This ring was cursed by Luo Fenghua. After he cursed the person who wear the ring, as long as the moonlight shone on him, his skin would be chapped and he would suffer a fate worse than death. And this would happen every night. What? More than that. Su Xuanglin's hand stroked the jade of the ring. He closed his eyes and felt the turbulent spiritual current there. On the 15th day of the full moon, even if you don't go out of the house and the walls are sealed, you will still feel the pain of being cut into pieces and there is no way to escape from it. He opened his eyes and looked at Nangong Lu, who was curled up on the ground miserably and whispered, "Until you die." Under the thick stench of blood, Nangong Liu's pupils suddenly constricted. He looked like a large rat that had lost its head in panic, but also like a venomous snake that had stuck its head out of a dark cave. He twitched comically and muttered, "It won't stop until death." "Yes. Can't. Can't you break the curse?" "I can't." Su Xuanglin said, "At least I can't think of any way to break it at the moment. I can only..." Before he could finish his words, Nangong Lu broke free from his hand and climbed down the stairs while screaming and laughing madly. He dragged a crooked trail of blood on the cold and clean floor tiles. He screamed and laughed at the same time. His voice was hoarse and distorted to the extreme. It was as sharp as a needle. Even many people outside the illusion couldn't stand it and covered their ears with their hands. "Ha ha ha, curse me? You curse me? Luo Fenghua. You took the position meant for the head of the Nangong family. I kicked you off the stage, leaving you with an intact corpse. It's already, it should be enough vindication. Yet you actually curse me? How can you bear? How can you? Because of your teachings. I buried you in the hero's tomb." "Ha? The hero's tomb? Yet, you want me to suffer every night until my skin is torn and my flesh is broken apart until I die?" He roared and moved inch by inch to the entrance of the main hall. He hid in the thick shadow cast by the heavy red bronze door of the main hall. His fingers twitched ferociously and suddenly slammed on the ground. He couldn't help but hit the ground heavily. "Until death. How can you be so cruel? How can you be so cruel, bastard? You bastard! You've ruined my life." Sect leader. The people around couldn't bear it and wanted to help him back up, but Nangong Lu roared and shouted as if he had gone mad. This mangled face had always been one of cowardice and incompetence, more so than any other color. But today, it was different. There was a bone-deep hatred on his face. It leaped about in his pupils like a wildfire, burning away his reason just like how a wildfire leaves a ground barren of life. Nangong Lu screamed hysterically, "Hear me, the First Order, as the sect leader." The attendants all knelt down and listened to the order. "The former sect leader, Luo Fenghua, has committed a great, evil, unforgivable deed. Order people to cut his remains, into 10,000 pieces, into 10,000 pieces." Su Xuanglin stood quietly on the side. He lowered his eyes and listened, but no expression could be seen on his face. At this time, a new round of tearing came. Nangong Lu couldn't bear it anymore. He suddenly collapsed and burst into tears again. But while he was crying, he still finished the first order he gave as the new sect leader of Rufeng sect. He squeezed every word out of his molars, "Sink into the corpse, blood pond. You cursed me to be mutilated until I die. Then I will sink you into the infinite hell, never to be reincarnated." At the end of this illusion, Nangong Lu opened his empty and vacant eyes. His voice was like a broken porcelain suan, extremely hoarse. He muttered, "Luo Fenghua, bastard, you bastard." The memory fragments began to collapse and reassemble like snowflakes. The bloody secrets of the Rufeng sect were being revealed little by little, causing almost everyone present to be enthralled. Some people, like Ye Wangzi and Nangong Si, had no choice but to watch because of their own personal involvement. However, most people were excited by the fact of knowing other people's secret, some are even finding pleasure in other people's misfortune. Jealousy was one of the ugliest emotions in the world. Of these people who were invited to attend Nangong Si's wedding, how many of them sincerely admire the Rufeng sect? How many of them went through the magnificent 3 outbuildings, saw the spiritual stones pavement that were as valuable as gold, saw the 72 cities under the heavens, and only had admiration in their hearts, without the slightest bit of jealousy. The taller the pavilion, the more it would attract people's attention when it collapsed. Melon seeds would litter all over the ground and spit would splatter every which way. The pain of others was always the best topic of gossip on the streets and on alleys, and of after-meal conversations. Moran was somewhat unwilling to continue watching, but this matter is a little doubtful and was of great importance. Although Su Xuanglin's recollections seemed to be straightforward enough and had been able to explain matters in Jinchinj Lake and the Peach Blossoms Spring, he still vaguely felt that something was not right. He could sense that there was something particular is wrong in the memories that were being projected. Just what was it? He furrowed his brows as he pondered. Suddenly, from the corner of his eyes, he saw that there seemed to be a strange light flashing in the distance. But because there was one illusion after another unfolding here, no one would look outside the forest, so unexpectedly no one noticed it. Moran was stunned for a moment, and then his expression suddenly changed. He shouted, "Tribulation fire!" Hearing this, everyone turned their heads. Tribulation fire? Where is the tribulation fire? Over there, over there. Oh no. There's also one here. No one had expected that while they were watching Su Xuanglin reminisce about the past, the 72 cities around the Rufeng sect were burning with raging scarlet flames. At this time, the flames were still far away and they were deep in the forest, so if they didn't pay close attention, they wouldn't be able to see it clearly. The tribulation fire was one of the most severe types of fire. Unless there was a heavy rain and sweet dew, it wouldn't stop until the surroundings were burned to ashes. Thick smoke billowed, and the flames were like water splashed on a piece of silk, quickly spreading out in all directions. In the distance, they could see that there were bright meteors flying in all directions from the 72 cities, but if they looked carefully, where were the meteors? They were clearly the disciples of the Rufeng sect who had escaped from the sea of fire and flew out on their swords. When the people in the forest saw this, many of them suddenly turned pale and shouted, "What's going on?" Some people immediately turned around and ran towards the Hall of Poetry and Music, repeatedly calling the names of their companions. Xue Zhenjiang's expression also changed, because Madame Wang was still there, and she didn't know the sword flight technique at all. Moran. "You hang. I'll leave Meng Er to you, I'll go see Madame." Moran was also very anxious, so he nodded and said, "Uncle, go quickly, take Auntie and leave first. With us here, I definitely won't let anything happen to Xue Meng." Xue Zhenyang patted his shoulder with force, then flew toward the Hall of Poetry and Music where the flames were visibly rushing. Seeing the sudden chaos, Su Xuanglin stood quietly in the same place. Suddenly, an extremely brilliant smile bloomed on his face. He said with a smile, "What a scene of monkeys scattering when the tree falls." Moran suddenly turned his head and saw Su Xuanglin snap his fingers, causing the fragments of memories to gather in his palm like thousands of snowflakes. The surrounding sea of fire was restored and the infernal hell's heavenly rift still hadn't closed. It was still pouring out golden red lava, spreading toward the forest at an extremely slow speed. Moran stared at Su Xuanglin and suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. There was something eerily wrong with this person's eyes. Moran was all too familiar with this gaze. In his previous life, when he was at Shisheng Peak, in that empty Wushan palace after Chu Wanning's death, he looked at himself in the mirror and what he saw then was a pair of terrifying eyes just like this. Filled with madness and bloodlust, it was a pair of eyes that had given up on themselves and wanted everyone to be buried with them. "Do you intend to destroy the Rufeng sect?" Hearing Moran's question, Su Xuanglin's reaction was only to rub his two toes together. Then he smiled. "So what if I do? If I destroy my own home, what does it have to do with you?" "Your own home?" Su Xuanglin stepped on the rolling lava and walked to Nangang Liu's side. He grabbed the back of his collar and pulled him up from the ground. With raised eyelids, he confirmed, "Yes, my own home." He forced Nangonglu to look at his face. Then he raised his other hand. Slowly, inch by inch, from under his neck, he slowly begun to slowly tear bit by bit. Rip. Finally, with a soft sound, an exquisite human skin mask made from the skin of a 100-year-old serpent demon was taken off, revealing a face that was no longer youthful. At first, Nangongliu's entire body shook, and then he began to tremble violently. His breathing became erratic as he struggled to drag out bits and pieces of sound from his throat. It's you. You didn't die. You actually. I didn't die. Since you're still alive, how can I die before you? Su Xuanglin said with a smile, I'm much stronger than you in every aspect, including my lifespan. Even if you rot in the mud, I'll still live a good life. What? You and I have met again after a long separation. Are you so happy that you don't know what to say? He created a cluster of fire and casually burned the human skin mask. The flames continued to spread until it reached his fingertips, but he did not care at all as he didn't seem to feel any pain. He shook his hand and pressed his burnt fingertips to Nangongliu's lips. He tilted his head and said with a crooked smile, Greetings sect leader, long time no see. Or should I call you brother? End chapter.